Toilet paper is useless, you say. I think not. Hello, everybody. I hope that everyone is doing A-okay at home. I hope everyone has enough toilet paper. Happy Thursday. Yesterday, you should have finished gathering all of the information that you need for your essay, because today we're going to be talking about counterclaims, how to counter somebody else's claim when they inevitably argue against you. Because if I know you guys at all, I know how much you like to argue with each other. Yes, you like to argue with each other a lot. But in this sort of academic context, that's okay. I'm going to show you how to take somebody else's argument and then sort of spin that back on them in a sort of professional, respectful, smart way. So get ready for big brain time. Let's get into some notes, and then I'll show you how to write a counter-argument paragraph. So I have a question for you. What if the opposite side of the controversy you're arguing brings up a really good point against you and your argument? Well, there is something you can do in case that sort of thing happens. You can research the other side and try and anticipate other arguments people might be bringing against you. So what I'm going to have you do is I'm actually going to have you pause the video here and take about 5 to 15 minutes to see if you can research some of the points that the opposing side of your argument might come up with. So, for example, in my paper, I'm writing against school uniforms. What I need to do is I need to look up some articles that say that schools should have school uniforms and take some notes on one or two of those articles to see what are some of their strongest arguments against my side, and based on that, what information would I need to either prove those arguments wrong, or even if they do bring up some good points, at least prove their arguments less right. So pause the video here, take 5 to 15 minutes, research the other side's arguments, and see if you can take some notes on them as well. So when you're done doing some research, I'm going to show you how to come up with a counter-argument paragraph that should help you kind of defend your claim and fight against the opposing side. A counter-argument consists of 3 different parts. The first part is acknowledging what the other side says. So you're going to bring up the main argument that your opposing side has against you. The second part of a counter-argument paragraph is accommodating. By accommodating, I mean admitting what part of their argument is right. It's not always about being right or wrong. Sometimes the other side's going to have a good argument against you, and it's okay to admit where their argument is right and where they bring up some good points. But remember, you're still trying to convince your reader that your side is better. So the third and final part of a counter-argument paragraph is refuting, aka showing your reader using new facts, data, or ideas how the opposition is less right than they think. Or if maybe they have some common misconception that you're able to disprove with some reliable, significant, and relevant source of your own. All right, so by this point, you should have finished up doing a little bit of research into the other side's argument. If you haven't already done so, for this lesson and the next lesson especially, we're going to look at the persuasive essay exemplar, which is an example of a 100% completed, perfect A+ paper. You're going to want to click on this, pull this up, in addition to taking out your outline that you were working on last time, okay? Because you're going to be using the information from this to complete the worksheet or the graphic organizer today. For today's assignment, you are actually going to be filling out this counter-argument paragraph checklist before you implement it into your essay itself. I promise that if you fill out this graphic organizer first, it's going to make your life a lot easier when you're trying to put this all together into words, okay? So the first thing I want you to do is I'm actually going to have you pause the video again If you haven't already read the exemplar, go ahead and read it all the way through. I'm going to post an audio recording of me reading it as well. Specifically for this lesson, though, let's take a look at this second to last paragraph here, the one with the underlined section at the very beginning of it, okay? I'm going to pause the video. I'm going to let you read through. Once again, the audio recordings of this will be available if you would like to access them as well. While you're reading through, I want you to look for the three main components of a counter-argument paragraph as well. Do they, one, acknowledge the points of the other side? Do they, two, accommodate the points of the other side, mention where the side brings up good points? And then for the third and final part of it, do they end up refuting the points of the other side as well? Done with that, let's go ahead and take a look at the counter-argument checklist. I'm going to be using some notes that I have printed out here. I went to an article called, let's see, The Pros and Cons of School Uniform Policy. This was an article I looked up that actually argues for school uniforms, talking about how they are a good thing to include in schools. So let's go ahead and see how you can set up a counter-argument paragraph. The first thing I would need to do is I would need to acknowledge the other side's claim. So I would start with some sort of transition phrase. I might say like, okay, this is not to say that school uniforms are completely bad in every way. Uniforms, actually, you know what? Once again, we start with background, right? According to, let's see, what's my voice? According to the pros and cons of a school uniform policy by Sarah Kuta. Let me continue on. Uniforms do help schools identify their own students. So now that I'm done bringing up some information that the opposite side has talked about, I'm going to do a little bit of accommodating. I'm going to admit what part of their argument is right. I'm going to do the respectful thing. So in this case, I agree that school uniforms help schools identify their own students. So I'm going to write that. I'm going to say, this is a valid point, especially when schools take students on field trips. Chaperones can use uniforms as a way of quickly identifying where their students are. Okay? However, remember, what side am I on at the end of the day, though? I'm not on the side that schools should implement school uniforms. In my paper, I'm on the side of schools being against school uniforms, right? So I need to refute. I brought in another bit of information. This time I actually went to Amazon.com to look up a price for a certain kind of bandana. And at this point, I'm going to use a transition word. However, I'm going to talk about how maybe school uniforms aren't the best way to go about things. Let me go ahead and write this out. However, there is a way to easily identify students without requiring families to buy entire uniforms. Then I'm going to use a colon. Bandanas is my idea here. If schools change their daily uniform requirements to include colored bandanas tied to students' arms or some other easily visible place, they can identify students that way. And here is my specific evidence that I brought in from Amazon. Even high quality bandanas cost only $15.99 for a pack of 12. And I'm going to put in parentheses where I got my source, since I don't introduce that at the beginning. Elephant brand bandanas. Bandanas. One last bit of analysis. This is a far more cost-effective way than using a full set of clothing. So notice how much time I spend on the other side's argument versus how much I spend on my argument. I do bring up their main point against me. I talk about where they are correct, but then I spend at least the second half of my paragraph talking about another way we could do things that's still related to my side, proving that my side of the argument is better. Or if you find some sort of article that disproves something that your main opponents bring up against you, then you can talk about how at the end of the day they're incorrect with their assumptions. So in order to turn this into a full paragraph, I would simply copy and paste each of these little sections that I put together. I would cut, the hotkey for this is Control X, and I would paste all this together. And that is how you write a counter-argument essay. By the end of the day, I want you to use this counter-argument checklist and submit this, as well as going to the little exit ticket quiz and submitting that as well. Let me know if you have any questions, if you want me to look over something before you submit it, or have your peers do so. I'd be more than happy to help you.